All right, welcome back, everybody. And on to our third demonstration for the day, and it's CxAlloy. CxAlloy TQ is the #1 cloud-based commissioning management platform, empowering commissioning professionals to accelerate project completion while alleviating waste and rework. CxAlloy TQ brings real-time transparency to the entire project team through instant web access and field-optimized offline apps. And here to tell you much more about that is Jacob.terry, Director of Product Development at CxAlloy. Jacob?
Great, thank you, Ray. Hi, I'm Jacob.terry. I head up the CxAlloy product and going to spend just a few minutes today giving you a brief overview of our CxAlloy TQ product and focusing in particular on a recent feature that we rolled out as also sort of one to talk about that feature, but also to use it as sort of a demonstration about what we're trying to do with our software in terms of making it something that's going to be as useful as possible to you. And it really ties into this tagline we use: get in, get done, get home, right? We're really focused on helping you to manage your administrative time and reduce it as much as possible. And with that, we spend a lot of time on the kind of nuts and bolts of interacting with the software and the things, the little paper cuts that can take a lot of time and slow you down. We're always thinking about how we can eliminate those and make it more efficient and faster for you. So first of all, let me just address kind of the platform at a high level. There's, as others have said so far, right? These products, ours is no exception. There's a lot to them. And so, you know, I could talk for half an hour on any one of these areas without issue. But, you know, we've got sort of the gamut of things that you need in terms of managing a commissioning project. So full assets, area, equipment type systems, locations, which include spaces, floors, zones, buildings. We added campuses recently as another layer of organization that you can do there. We have the different reports, field observations for your site visits, design and construction reviews for submittals and drawings and so forth, checklists, tests, issues log, construction and design phase issues logs, tremendous reporting capabilities, including custom reports, final commissioning report, anything of that nature, or even the very small scale things that you might need. And we also do offer offline apps. We have iPhone and iPad offline apps that allow you to work with your projects out in the field without needing an internet connection. And on those, we really have a very robust tool set that's available to you, pretty much feature parity with what's available on the web, which is sort of the primary interface for checklists, tests, and issues, including the ability to create checklists and tests, edit those checklists and tests out there in the field. And we're actually going to touch on that right at the end of what I want to talk about today. So what I want to focus on today is an enhancement over the last year or so we've been working on for our checklists and tests, which we added, or we changed our structure a bit, where we introduced this concept of a line type. So every question in the checklist or test has some type. It's it's asking, the type defines kind of what's required for it to be answered, right? It might require a file to be uploaded. It might require a value to be inputted. It might require just a simple yes, no answer. And the most recent that we've rolled out is a table line type, where the question requires a table as the answer. And I've got an example of this now that we're going to walk through a couple of scenarios. So this is a one-line test with a question asking for a table of data as the answer. So if I go in to answer this, I can say add data, get this form up here. Now this format we have is one that allows the user only to add new rows. So we've predefined the table that the user has to input, and then they can fill it out and just add new rows. And you'll notice as I'm navigating around here, you can see that there's controls about adding rows and removing rows and so forth. Those are responsive to kind of those restrictions that might be in place. And another thing you'll see in this recording is that there are keyboard controls that are available, right? So there's shortcuts for everything, moving within the actual table, adding lines, Right there, I'm using a keyboard shortcut to add 2 additional rows, below. And so I can fill this table out, and then when I'm done, hit save, and that's going to go in there as my answer for this line. We're going to present that right on the screen, right on the page. You can hide that if you don't want to see it. There's also a larger view. These tables could be very large. We have no limits on them. Might be thousands of columns or rows. So we have a larger view available. And then we're going to integrate this into our, those answers, of course, need to come out into our PDF reports and to our Excel reports. And we have beautiful reporting, great PDFs. And this gets to what I wanted to be sure to talk about is, when we build a feature out like this, it's not just, oh, hey, I need to be able to record tables. It's the whole ecosystem that it needs to support. It needs to come out in the PDF. It needs to come out in the Excel exports. It needs to be available through our API that we have. And we've made sure to address all of those pieces. I'm showing here in the PDF options that you can choose whether you want to show it inline when possible or always have it in the appendix. If you do it in the appendix, we put a link in there to allow you to jump back and forth between those pages of the PDF, between the table data itself and the line that was asking for that table data. So, it's not just about, oh, yeah, let's allow table data entry. It's like, okay, how do we make that something really convenient, right? How do we make that something that is going to flow through all the way to the end of the project into the reporting side of things? This is demonstrated here with the Excel export. So when you can either generate a PDF report or an Excel export. When you do an Excel export, we will include the table data itself. We'll have a link in the cell. You'll see that we've added a worksheet just for the table data that was recorded. We can go and look at that table data. Of course, it's the information that we saw on the line, part of the export here. Let's go and talk a little bit more about how you set these up. So tests and checklists can be directly created, but generally come from a template. This one is no different. It comes from a template that we set up. And over on that template is where we configured this question and set it up to be a table that's required as the answer. So we can go and add additional ones. Maybe we need, 8 breaker lines for the different, that's how many breakers may be available. So I'm adding another line. I'm saying it's a table line. I'm going in and I'm going to create the table structure. And I can just do that manually. And again, I can use keyboard shortcuts or the controls on the screen to do so. Of course, I already have an example here. So rather than take that time, I can just copy and paste the table. I'm showing here within the software, but you can also copy and paste from Excel. So I could do it from Excel instead of from an existing table line type in the software. And then I'm going to make some adjustments to it. And one of the things you'll see is I can control what the end user can do, right? So I'm going to make it so they can only add rows. So the columns are predefined. I've defined those. They won't be able to modify those, but they will be able to add additional rows as needed. Now, an even easier way than doing that is actually you could just duplicate the line that you've already set up like so. Or if you've got a whole bunch like this case, even easier than that is you can batch duplicate essentially. So we have a batch actions, we can copy, take those 3 lines, add them in, duplicate them essentially, and just change their questions each in turn. Now, once I make a change like this, how am I going to get that back to the test if I already have created tests like I had in this case from it? That's where it gets into our push changes feature. So if I were to go ahead and in this scenario, I've already created the test with the 6 questions, but I add a 7th. So I add a breaker number 7 and, just a duplicate situation. So the same as before. And then I'm going to go up to this push changes option, which is going to apply this change from the template to whatever test. And it's only 1 in this case, but it could be hundreds or thousands even that already exist from this template. So it's really easy to do these sort of batch changes. And you'll see if I refresh the page here, okay, that breaker 7 line now appears. It didn't mess with my line 1 answer. I'd already started to answer this. That wasn't touched, right? And so I was able to apply that change without losing any of my prior work. And again, the whole ecosystem needs to be supported. So that goes all the way into our iOS app. So when we rolled out this table line type, and we needed to have support in iOS. So this is that same test viewed in iOS, same controls, the ability to add rows and columns and so forth. I can, of course, answer this right here in line in the iOS app. One thing that we even support, which is a real edge case, but we've got very committed iOS developers, is there's keyboard support here too. If you're using an external keyboard to interact with this, all of the exact same keyboard shortcuts that you saw that we have available on the web for these actions are available here in the app as well. Now I'm using the soft keyboard, right, rather than a hardware keyboard in this example. But if you're using a hardware keyboard, all of those shortcuts are supported. And again, touching on this full ecosystem support, we have a fantastic feature in our iOS app, which is the ability to batch answer, right? So if you've got a whole bunch of checklists or a whole bunch of tests that are all based on the same template, and you want to answer those all together as a group, rather than having to navigate into each one to set those answers, you can do that. So that's going to be our last example. I've created 9 fan coil unit tests. I'm going to pick just a few of them and answer them together as a single group. Now, this question just says, this checklist just says, or test just has one question. But I can go in there and go to fill out the table. In this case, we're dealing with a fully predefined table, and I'm just required to, fill out the individual cells is all. And so I can go in there and mark these answers to each of these cells. And what I'm doing is I'm not only answering it for a single test, but I'm actually answering it across all 4, in this case, 4 tests that I selected, the first 4 fan coil units. And I could have picked all 9 if I wanted. So I go in, put these values in, answer it. Okay, I've now actually answered, and you can see I extend it down and I can see that I've answered this for 4 of those tests. I can go in there and make modifications to any one of them, like I just did there, and say, well, for this particular version, for this particular test, the values are actually slightly different. So you can start from answering it across all of them, and then go down and make any modification specifically to one that needs to be adjusted in some way. And all of that right there, anything in the iOS app is available, and by default is done offline, right? So no need to worry about having an internet connection to accomplish that. So that's just a little snippet of what the platform offers in this particular feature that we rolled out, demonstrated. But I think I like it because, one, it's a great feature, but also it touches on all these areas that we really pay a lot of attention to, right? The administrative, sort of the batch management tools that we have, the reporting and exporting in our API, which I didn't demonstrate but mentioned, support that we're always consistent with, our offline iOS apps that we keep in feature parity with what we're rolling out on the web. So anything that you can do with these checklists or tests or issues on the web, you can also do offline in the app. And ultimately, the goal, again, is to allow you to, it's really true, right? Get done and get home and not have to spend all this extra time on just, repetitive clicking type of tasks, instead to get through that effort as quickly as possible, so you can focus your time on those things that are the most important and valuable to you. And that's what I had to demo here today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jacob. Appreciate CxAlloy and the rest of the showcase participants. If anybody has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A queue there, and we'll feed them to Jacob. We did have one preset question, Jacob, or a couple actually, but such as, do you integrate with Procore?
Yes. So, we've really seen Procore take off in the last couple of years as a really popular platform to be used by the GCs. And so about almost 2 years ago now, we added in, and we are continually working on it. We've got one of our folks on our development team is exclusively devoted to our integrations and our API. And she's been continually iterating on our Procore integration. It allows any of the issues that you create in the CxAlloy project to get pushed to Procore as commissioning observations. And then those are kept in sync from there on out. So comments and and files that are added over on the Procore platform to those items come back and show up in CxAlloy and vice versa.
Great. And what about what happens if multiple users are working offline, but at the same time?
Yeah, so offline is these types of questions come up a lot about an offline app. It's like, okay, that's great, that sounds neat, but am I going to run into all sorts of conflicts? And basically, I always like to start from the high level is you're not going to run into those problems, right? But on a technical level, I know we're dealing with engineers. They often want to understand kind of the nuts and bolts of it. The way that we handle that is that we record the changes to data at as granular a level as we possibly can, right? So if you go and you change the priority of an issue from moderate to high, that's the only change that we're logging there. Someone else might simultaneously change its status from open to in progress. Both of you working offline make those changes independently, then you both sync up. Well, ultimately on the server, both those changes will be reflected. So the issue will be set to priority high and the status will be set to in progress, and we accepted both of them. And so it really alleviates a lot of potential conflicts to deal with it at that granular level. Now you can create a situation like if I change the priority to high while someone else changes it to low, we're both offline and then we both sync. Ultimately, that is two different changes. But what we'll do is we'll accept both of those and just the last one wins. So whichever one gets to the server most recently is what we'll show. However, we have a full history that we record for all changes of data in the system. And so you can always go into an issue and open up that history or any item, checklist, test, equipment, anything, and see all the changes that have come to it. So in that case, you would see that, okay, well, it was marked low, and then a couple minutes later when the other person synced, it changed to high. And that's what happened here. And you can proceed as needed. But basically, the net result is you never really have to deal with conflicts because, as someone said earlier, we generally find people aren't eager to do more work than they're required. So you don't normally have multiple people working on the same item at the same time. But even if they do, we have these mechanisms to handle it really cleanly.
Okay, great. And then one more question, unless we have anything coming in from those attending. Can users assign different parts of a checklist to different users, or can a company, I suppose?
Right. Yeah. So the way our system works, and we're talking about like checklists and tests, this is generally where this comes up, this question. Our platform is built around allowing, or it's built to work best with supporting multiple checklists or multiple tests. Checklists in particular is where this comes into play for the same piece of equipment or the same system. And that's how you delineate, different assignments. So if you've got, an air handling unit and you've got some questions or some checklist items that need to be completed by the mechanical contractor, some by the electrical contractor, and some by the controls contractor, you would actually go ahead and create 3 independent checklists for that. And we make that really easy in the software in our tools about you can batch create, you can select multiple templates during that batch creation process. So you go through it one time to create those entities. That creates a lot of clarity for the folks both answering it so they can see what they're responsible for because they're only responsible for those ones checklists that are assigned to them. And it creates clarity on the reporting side because our filtering tools make it really easy then to go, okay, where am I at with all my electrical checklists for my air handling units and to get that type of information out versus where am I at with my mechanical ones. And so by breaking it up that way, it gives you, again, it makes it easier on the contractor side, which is really quite important in our experience. And it makes it easier on the reporting side to get at the information that you want to know about how things are progressing on the project.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jacob. So now that's about the time we have here. So I'm going to, first I'm going to explain CxAlloy's giveaway because it's location and date specific. So they're giving away 2 free tickets to Forge Symposium 2023. It's an in-person user conference. Registration value is $590 each. It's going to take place in Atlanta from October 18th to the 20th. So if you're interested in that, and somebody already correctly guessed that we would just have you put CxAlloy in the chat. If you want to be entered into that drawing. And just for a little bit more information, sessions at Forge Symposium will be on building performance, energy efficiency, the evolving role of commissioning providers, lots of good things. ACG will actually have a presence there this year. We're doing a workshop around that same time. If anybody online is interested in that, contact ACG, not CxAlloy specifically about the workshop. Yeah, it's a great event. We've been in the past, and we'll give another minute or so here for people to put their name in the hat. All right, thank you, everybody. Drum roll, please. Okay, and the winner of the CxAlloy giveaway, 2 tickets to Forge Symposium, is Andy Sharon. Andy, congratulations. We will get your information to Jacob and CxAlloy, and hope you're able to go and enjoy the conference. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you, Jacob and CxAlloy. And we will join you again at about 2:20 for our next presenter, which is CX Planner. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Thank you, Jacob.
Thanks. Thank you.